It started in the fall, when the days in Willow Creek got shorter and the shadows stretched longer across the pavement. The kind of town where the football team runs the school and the sheriff looks the other way if your daddy owns a dealership or donates enough to the church roof fund. My name's Daniel Maddox, and before everything happened, I was a staff sergeant stationed overseas. But this story isn't about me, not at first. It's about my brother Tyler. Tyler was 17 when they did it. A quiet kid, not soft, just different, smart, sensitive, the kind of boy who liked astronomy and built model rockets. He didn't go to parties, he didn't chase girls or drink in the woods like most of the seniors, and that made him a target. The worst of them was Mason Clay. His father was the town contractor, built half the new homes and slept through half the council meetings while they approved his bids. Mason was all fake charm and teeth. Star quarterback. Always knew how to smile just enough so teachers excused his mouth and his fists. Then there was Travis Doyle, big and dumb with nothing to lose, and Corey Bishop, whose only skill was knowing how to blend into whoever was strongest that week. They started with jokes, pushing Tyler's books out of his hands in the hallway, slamming his locker shut just as he opened it, spraying paint on his bike. It escalated in ways that didn't make the news but carved into someone's soul like slow acid. They cornered him in the locker room one Friday after practice and stuffed his gym bag into the toilet. They left him in the woods after convincing him it was a trust test for some made-up senior ritual. Still, Tyler didn't tell Mom. He didn't tell me either. I was stationed in Jordan, neck deep in a world I didn't understand, and he probably thought I had bigger problems. Maybe he thought it'd stop, that they'd move on. But bullies don't move on when they sense fear. They circle. They taste it. One November evening, after a parent-teacher conference, Mom found him in the garage with a bloody nose and his lips split open. She thought it was an accident. Slipped on his skateboard, he said. She believed him. Until 2 weeks later, she came home early from work and found him sitting in the laundry room, trembling. He wouldn't talk, not even when she screamed his name. He just stared at the floor, like something had broken inside. The hospital report said no permanent brain damage, but there was swelling, bruising along the side of his neck and jaw. His vocal cords were intact, but he hadn't spoken a single word since. Trauma, the doctor said, likely psychological. They handed us pamphlets and told us to wait. I got the call 2 days later, came home on emergency leave, 4 months before my deployment was supposed to end. When I walked through that door and saw Tyler sitting at the kitchen table, eyes hollow, mouth closed, face stitched and swollen, something cold settled in my chest. Not rage, not yet, just silence. I didn't ask him what happened. I didn't have to. Willow Creek only had so many wolves, and they all wore the same varsity jacket. I pieced it together through bits from his classmates, whispers, the way the teachers stammered when I asked questions. Mason, Travis, Corey. One night, behind the gym, after a game they won. They caught Tyler waiting for Mom. They kicked him until he stopped making noise. No arrests, no suspensions. The school called it a misunderstanding. No footage, no witnesses. A quiet, "We're sorry," from the principal, and a warning not to stir things up. They knew I was military, thought I'd punch a wall and leave it alone. They didn't know me. I didn't tell Mom what I was going to do. I let them think I was taking care of my brother. I took over his medication schedule, got him to his appointments, sat next to him as he scribbled notes instead of speaking. He was locked away in his own mind, but I could see it in his eyes. Shame, fear, anger too, buried under it all. They had taken his voice. I was going to take everything from them. Not with fists, not with guns. I'd seen what real war looked like. This would be something else. I started with Mason. He lived in a 2-story McMansion just off Eagle Ridge. His dad had built it. I watched the house for 2 nights from a parked truck down the road. Noted when lights went out, when they turned on. Mason had a pattern. Gym, school, practice, fast food. Then gaming with his headset on until after midnight. I started small, slipped into their backyard one night and unscrewed the floodlight over the porch. 2 days later, I killed the Wi-Fi by cutting the coax from the outside box. Nothing dangerous, just annoyance, a slow creep. When I finally went inside, I didn't steal anything. I moved his keyboard an inch to the left, unplugged his mouse, loosened the screws on his desk chair until it leaned weird. I opened his closet and removed one shoe from every pair, hid them inside the attic panel. I wanted him unsettled. By the end of the week, he was arguing with his parents about stuff going missing and why the house felt off. His father thought he was on drugs. His mother cried in the driveway one morning while talking on the phone. Then I went after Travis. He worked part-time at the auto shop on Main. I slashed the tire of a car he was working on and left the blade in the drain under the lift. He got written up. A week later, I drained half the coolant from another vehicle and left a note in the glove box that said, "Your mistake killed my car." His boss fired him. At night, I played recordings outside his window. Not loud, just enough to wake him. Crying, screams, whispers. I moved the recordings around so it wasn't always in the same spot, sometimes on the roof, sometimes by the bushes. He started sleeping with the lights on. Corey was the softest link. I didn't even have to go near his house. I printed fake emails from a girl he was seeing and slipped them into her locker, made it look like he was sleeping with her cousin. Then I made the cousin think he was stalking her. When she blocked him, I left roses on her porch with his name on the tag. Within 2 weeks, she filed a school complaint. Corey was suspended pending an investigation. None of them knew it was me. Not yet. But I wasn't finished. This wasn't just about driving them insane. This was about justice. I was going to expose them, ruin them publicly, and make sure the whole town knew what they'd done to a boy who never hurt anyone. And in the background, Tyler began to change. He still wouldn't speak. But he stopped flinching. He started sleeping through the night. He smiled once when he found out Mason had been benched for missing practice because of anxiety issues. I didn't smile back. I wasn't finished. I was just getting started. Mason started seeing a therapist. His mom whispered it to the pastor's wife during Sunday service. She didn't think anyone else heard. But Willow Creek's walls were thin and its secrets thinner. By then, Mason had stopped going out after school. His girlfriend dumped him, said he was acting weird, paranoid, asking if she heard voices in his room when he was out. He started showing up late to class, twitchy, and coach benched him indefinitely. It didn't stop. Every day, one of them got hit in a different way. Not violence, never that. I wanted fear. I wanted them to feel it in their bones. The wrongness, the isolation, the sense that the world was closing in and no one believed them. Exactly what Tyler must have felt when they circled him behind the gym. I took it further. For Mason, I used his own charm against him. I made a fake social account, a girl named Brianna, the type he chased. She was perfect, confident, flirty, mysterious. I filled her profile with local landmarks, believable photos, made her seem just real enough. He bit hard. Within days, they were messaging every night. I fed him lies, told him things no one else could know. I watched him unravel in real time. He told her things, insecure things, about his father, about drinking, about the coach touching players during training sessions, all recorded, all cataloged, all waiting. With Travis, I planted a stolen bottle of Oxy under his truck seat and made an anonymous call to his probation officer. Turns out he'd been on a deferred sentence from a fight the year before. They searched the truck and found the pills. He swore they weren't his. They never believed that line. He spent 2 nights in county and came out looking smaller. Corey got the worst of the isolation. I faked a college email and sent him an acceptance letter. Then a week later, a rejection. A mix-up, we regret to inform you, wrong applicant number. It crushed him. His mom posted the original acceptance all over Facebook. When the truth came out, they were humiliated. The school buzzed with rumors. They were falling apart. Everyone saw it. But no one knew why. And Tyler kept healing. He still didn't speak, not a word, but his posture changed. He walked like he wasn't scared anymore. His eyes weren't hollow. I came home one day and found him sketching in the garage. Old space shuttle designs, like he used to. When he looked up and saw me watching, he nodded. A quiet thanks. I just nodded back. But I wasn't done. The final stage was public. I didn't want them just ruined. I wanted them exposed. One night, I broke into the school office. I didn't steal anything. I made copies. Tyler's medical report, the timeline, teacher complaints filed and ignored. One was from a janitor who had heard the beating but was told to stay quiet. Then I dug into the school cameras. The system was old, but there were backups. The footage from that night was deleted. But not the audio. In the maintenance drive, someone had saved raw feeds. I found it. The sounds, the laughter, the silence that followed when Tyler stopped crying out. The way one of them said, "I think he passed out." I recognized Mason's voice. I uploaded everything, made a site, called it Justice for Tyler. The audio, the timeline, the medical notes, anonymized, but clear. Then I set it to drop automatically on a Tuesday morning, the same day as the school board meeting. The town exploded. Parents flooded the school. Reporters came from 2 counties over. Mason's dad tried to threaten legal action, but he was up for re-election on the planning board. Photos of his son smiling with bruised knuckles surfaced from that fall. People started asking questions. The school suspended all 3 boys pending investigation. Colleges pulled their offers. Mason lost his scholarship. Travis was sent back to court for violating his terms. Corey stopped showing up altogether. The principal was forced to resign after leaked emails showed he ignored multiple complaints. The janitor came forward, confirmed what the audio already proved. A new investigation was opened. Tyler didn't say anything, but he started laughing again. Not loud, not all the time, but enough. We'd sit on the porch in the evening and he'd sip his lemonade and chuckle when the news mentioned another update on the Willow Creek assault case. One day he looked at me and mouthed something. I leaned in. He said it quiet, hoarse. "They're scared." It was the first thing he said in 4 months. And I knew. They hadn't just lost. They had been erased. Their reputations, their futures, their false power. They'd live the rest of their lives with people whispering behind their backs, with parents ashamed of them, with the truth always 1 click away. But I had one more thing to do. The one thing that would make it final. And it had to be in person. The final piece wasn't for the public. It wasn't for the school board or the town or even Tyler. It was for me. There's a difference between justice and closure. Justice was what I gave the town, the truth laid bare. But closure, that had to be personal. It had to be felt. It had to be unforgettable. I started with Corey. He'd dropped out of school. His parents pulled him after the investigation reopened and kids started recording him in the hallways. Rumors said they were planning to move north, stay with relatives in Michigan. But I wasn't going to let him slip away that clean. I followed him one night after dark. He was at the gas station on Old Mill Road, alone, hoodie up, nervously checking over his shoulder. I parked across the street, waited. When he drove off, I tailed him. No lights, just far enough to stay in the dark. He ended up at the old junkyard near the quarry, just sitting in the cab of his truck. Probably hiding, probably hoping to be anywhere but home. I got out, walked slow. No mask, no hood. Just me. When he saw me in his side mirror, he flinched like a scared animal. I didn't touch him. I just opened the door and got in the passenger seat. He didn't say anything. "You ever think about what it was like for him?" I asked. He didn't look at me, just stared straight ahead. "Do you even remember what you did?" His voice cracked. "I didn't hit him, I just watched." "Yeah," I said, and watching was enough. I leaned forward and placed a small recorder on the dashboard. "Tell me everything." He shook his head, but he was trembling. His eyes were glassy. I didn't yell, I didn't threaten, I just waited. And eventually, the words came. The entire story. What they did, what they said, how they laughed when Tyler tried to crawl away, how Mason kicked him in the neck and told him to shut that little bitch voice up, how Travis held him down, how Corey stood back and told himself that not stopping it wasn't the same as doing it. I recorded all of it. Then I got out and left him there. Travis was harder. He'd started carrying a switchblade after his last run-in with the law, and he'd been drinking more. Unstable, dangerous, but fear makes people stupid. I didn't confront him. I broke him. I mailed him a copy of the police report from his first assault, no return address. A week later, I sent a printout of his drug test results, forged to say he failed it, again. Then a photo of him sleeping in his truck, taken the night before, tucked under his windshield wiper. He showed up at the sheriff's office the next morning, twitching and red-eyed, begging them to tell him who was following him. They thought he was spiraling again. They told him to calm down. They didn't believe a word he said. 3 days later, he put his fist through a storefront window and got locked up again, this time longer. Mason was last. He stayed quiet the whole time. Publicly, at least. No social media, no texts. His family went into full damage control, hired a lawyer, tried to spin the story as a youthful mistake, but the town didn't buy it. The recordings were out, the bruises were real, the shame was permanent. But Mason still held on to one thing, his pride. That cocky grin he used to flash in the hallways was gone, but I knew deep down he still thought he was better, that if he just waited long enough, it would blow over. I took that from him too. I waited until his father was gone on business. Walked up to the Clay house one evening, rang the bell. His mother answered, polite and panicked all at once. I asked to speak to Mason. He came to the door wearing sweatpants and that blank look people get when they think they're dreaming. His eyes darted past me, probably looking for a cop car. Or a camera. Or a weapon. There was none. I held up the phone. Played the recording of Corey. Then the one of him. Mason's voice, laughing, jeering, calling Tyler names, kicking him again and again. The one he swore didn't exist. He listened, and when it ended, I leaned in close. I'm not here to fight you, I said. I'm here to let you know that you don't own the silence anymore. He's not afraid of you, and I'm done letting you pretend you're still important. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I stepped back. Next time you see someone like Tyler, you'll remember this. You'll remember what happens when the quiet ones have people who come back for them. I left him standing there. He didn't follow. Later that night, I found Tyler in the backyard, staring up at the stars. He used to tell me their names, the constellations, the myths behind them. He hadn't said much since that first whispered sentence. But as I sat next to him, he looked over, calm and steady. You're done now. His voice was rough, dry, like it had clawed its way back from somewhere dark. But it was his, full, alive. Yet I didn't say anything. He smiled, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw my brother again. Not broken, not scared. Oh, but the story wasn't quite over. There was still one place I needed to go. The school. The school smelled the same as it always had. Bleach, old paper, and that faint tang of cafeteria grease that never quite left the halls. I walked past the trophy cases, the plaques with Mason's name engraved in gold. He used to strut past them like they were carved in stone. Now they looked like a bad joke, chipped and smudged. I wasn't supposed to be there, but it didn't matter. The front office secretary didn't even look up when I passed. Maybe she recognized me. Maybe she just didn't care anymore. The new principal's office was upstairs. I knew she was in. I'd seen her car in the lot, same one from the school board meeting, a scratched blue Corolla that said she didn't get paid nearly enough for what she was walking into. She looked up when I knocked, frowned, then blinked like she knew exactly who I was. Daniel Maddox, I said. She nodded. You don't have an appointment. I'm not here to talk. She looked at me like she was bracing for some kind of confrontation. I could tell she expected a demand, maybe threats, maybe the kind of fatherly rage that had already been thrown at her from every angle by the parents of Mason, Travis, and Corey. I didn't give her any of that. Placed a small envelope on her desk. Inside was a letter, not for her, for Tyler, to be placed in his file. A record that the truth had been seen, that he hadn't imagined it, that someone had cared enough to do something. I just want it in the file, I said, so when people look back, it's there. She opened her mouth like she was going to say no, then stopped. Something in her expression softened. I'll make sure of it, she said quietly. I nodded, walked out. I didn't go back to the house right away. I stopped by the field behind the gym, the same patch of dirt where they'd cornered him. There were no cameras here now either, no benches, just a half-dead tree and gravel crushed into the earth where kids used to cut through on the way to the gas station. I crouched down, dug my hand into the gravel, and I didn't know what I was looking for, maybe some trace, a button, a scuff of a shoe, anything. But there was nothing left. That was the point. We didn't talk much about it afterward, me and Tyler. Some things don't need retelling. What happened to him wasn't erased, but it didn't need to live at the front of his life anymore. It could stay where it belonged, in the past, documented, faced, buried. He started speaking more, slow at first. Simple things, then full sentences, conversations. He never mentioned their names. I never brought them up. It was like some silent agreement between us. He had survived it, and I had finished it. Spring came, and the town shifted with it. The school hired a new counselor. Teachers went through mandatory training. Parents were called into forums. Most of it was noise, but some of it stuck. People started looking differently at the kids who didn't talk much, the quiet ones, the outcasts. It wasn't enough. Nothing ever really is. But it was more than there had been. Mason's family moved to Florida. His father sold the company at a loss after 3 contracts were pulled, and the town voted to replace him on the planning board. Travis was still in the system, his name now a warning to every coach in the county. Corey's mom homeschooled him now. Rumor had it she was filing a harassment lawsuit, but no lawyer wanted to touch it. They weren't dead, but they were done. Tyler applied to a summer program in Arizona, Space Sciences. They only took 8 kids in the whole state. He got in. I drove him to the airport myself. He packed light, wore his favorite hoodie, the same one they'd ripped the pocket off of. Mom had stitched it up, but you could still see the seam. He wore it anyway. In the terminal, before he left, he turned to me. "You scared me," he said. "Back then, after it happened, I thought maybe you'd do something stupid." "I did," I said. "Not stupid," he said. "Not the way I thought, just quiet." I smiled. "Runs in the family." He grinned. Then he hugged me. For the first time in years, he hugged me like we were brothers again, not survivors of some shared war. And then he was gone. People like Mason always think they're untouchable, that the system, the silence, the charm will save them, that boys like Tyler are just background noise, targets made for tearing down. They think fear is forever, but fear is a fragile thing. Once it breaks, all that's left is truth. Cold, heavy, undeniable. They beat my brother until he couldn't speak. So I made the whole town listen.